It's
All right,
room 15. Going down.
welcome to Mazecast episode 37, I believe now. I'm going to be led by Beals on this one, who's going to be running us through this newly five-starred room. Room was recently bumped up to 5 stars on the Abyss by the puzzle-solving talents of 515, the new and reigning Clue Master. I won't
What do you
go
think?
into
What do you think that name means? 515. I feel like those numbers probably relate to each other in some specific combination.
Hotel room.
Area code was my first thought. There were some big developments on, well, just in the community in general. I don't know whether we want to talk about that before or after or at all, but we did get a new set of, well, old, but we didn't know they existed, a new set of clues for Room 45. Did you see any of that, Beals?
Yeah, I did see that. You want to save that for the end? Make that kind of a special treat if anybody actually hangs through?
All right, that'll be the carrot we're going to dangle throughout the course of this
We
conversation.
should make a second video about it. Maybe we'll get more views that way.
No second videos.
Okay.
Everything important just gets tagged on to the end of a long rambling episode. That's the way we do things.
Well, we've basically closed the book on this one. I mean, thanks to Clue Master 515, we got the 5 stars. This one's basically a walk in the park, so we can probably knock this off in like 10 minutes, and then we'll have plenty of time to talk about the juicy.
All right, so all you want to see are the new clues. Just skip ahead 10 minutes, so I'm sure we'll be talking about them by then.
Oh yeah. You poor fool.
All right. Go ahead, Beals.
All right, so I'm just going to talk about some. I'll walk us through the confirmed stuff and just a few of the older ideas that haven't been really confirmed, but that I happen to enjoy. But then I'm a little bit less up on the more recent developments in this room, particularly room 15. So I'll let you guys cover that. But so this is room 15. This is on the path. This is almost out of the path. It's as you're leaving. You've just left room 4 for the last time, and the correct door is 37. And this is also, being that it's on the way out, we're also hoping to get a letter in the word shoulders in this room. And the letter that people generally hold appears in this room is letter H. And there are a number of ways you can get that. You can get it out of the fact that there are a whole lot of objects in the room that just begin with the letter H, from the 2 hats to the hair, that is the rabbit, to the heart-shaped chair. You've got some heroes on the right. You've got a helmet beneath them on the piece of paper. You've got a house. And just recently from 515, we had the suggestion that you can even just find several continuous H's in the rafters up at the top of the room. So there are a few.
Which, by the way, is ridiculous.
I'm sorry, what?
He said, which, by the way, is ridiculous.
I'm all for it. I think it's great. I think it's solid. Now that I see my picture.
Now, hold on a second. You don't really think there are H's up there.
Seriously.
Yeah, we're all just going to dogpile that one? Fine. No, I like it.
You do not.
I can explain.
There's no way in the world you think that's good.
I do. It's remarkable. You can just...
You're no longer a clue master. You're banished from the clue master society.
Those could be I's, L's, E's. I mean, they could be anything. When you've got a grid, you can make any kind of letter. There's nothing.
Can't be E's.
Really
You can't make E's out of those. If you can make E, you'd be able to see the top of the E.
He's using the rafters to do the shadow over the numbers.
Oh, no. Yeah, I think that's totally solid. No, I think that's...
I don't think it does double duty as H's. It could be like Vince said. It could be plus signs. It could be I's, H's, zeros.
What are you going to do with? What are you going to do with zeros? Next, you'll be telling me there's a whole chessboard up there.
You can't rate it by what you can do with it. I mean, just because you can do something with H's doesn't mean that everything's an H. Look, this is worse than the striped couch and the pillow in 34.
This is not worse than that. Don't you play that card. This is not worse than that.
No, it absolutely is. That's why I'm so shocked that you're signing on to it. I thought you would be the first to criticize H's in the rafters.
No, I like it.
Whatever, fine.
Fine, we can get off on this.
I mean, I don't want to piss off our new clue master either. You know, all respect to 515.
Apparently I'm the only one who's interested in playing Diplomat, so that's fine. So okay, so I'll say no more about H's because that's all there is to say about those. Maybe even a little bit more than there is to say about them, according to some people. The bulk of the interpretation of the room goes into how we're supposed to find the clue or clues that point us to 37. And there are a few ways, but Alex just mentioned one that I think is probably the most legit, which is that you have shadows coming down from the rafters, and they're blocking out several of the digits in the three numbers. They're blocking out the 0 from 30. They're blocking out the 3 and 37, and they're sort of blocking out. I mean, the light is resting close to the. I mean, the shadow is resting close to the 3 over on the right as well. So that would leave you with only the digits 3, 7, which are completely untouched by the shadow. You get the 3 from 30, the 7 from 37, and you could see that as pointing you to 37. And there are ways that you're supposed to sort of, there are things going on throughout the entire room that supposedly kind of push you to look upward and kind of take your clue from there. All of these mysterious silhouetted objects on the left, the bird, the cloud, the moon, the lightning bolt, all of these things are things that you could find in the sky. So the theory goes that they should be pointing your gaze upward. It's been noted that the smoke ascends out of the smokestack of the house and could direct your eye upward. There's the whole tripod thing, but I don't really want to talk about the tripod right now. There's some other stuff going on there, but and the sun. Well, there's a whole lot of other things going on there too, so that would really be pulling double or triple duty. But overall, there's an upward theme that people note to the room, and that's supposed to give you. The theory is that that's supposed to give you the idea to look at the shadows coming down from the rafters. So I feel like that's the strongest solution. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah,
I think there's something to it. It's a little, I have to kind of wonder why the 3 isn't just clearly in the shadows above door 3,
Yeah, that is a weak point, I agree.
That happens a lot, and I think it really makes me question whether we're finding a real solution where it's not like if you put it right over the 3, then it would suddenly be so obvious that he has to barely have it touched to make the puzzle work.
You're right.
It just makes me feel like it's not really the puzzle, But it does seem like, I mean, to me, it's apart from the sun and the star, the fact that you've got that placard with all those objects, which really just seem to sort of generically be saying things in the sky, and they're all shaded out like they're shadows, seems to suggest shadows in the sky. So I at least want it to work. I mean, I think it brings the room together well if that does that, but it's just a little bit, imprecise. And the other thing is, if you took the shadows themselves as being correct, you could also say, 0 and the 0 and the 3 side by side give you 3 essentially, right? Like if you're writing the number 3 as 2 digits, it would be 0, 3.
Sure.
And the 3 above door 3, again, because it's ambiguous, you could say it's touched by the shadow or not touched by the shadow. But you could say that that's meant to indicate that 3 is the correct door.
Yeah, that's possible.
I think this room has. It's not one of those things that has a overwhelming theme. It's got a bunch of little clues, like it's got the sun notice on the door, but pointed out that that's actually a V, so you've got 7.
The other solutions, but and tell me if there's anything I missed, but I think I'll say what you're going to say. But while we're on the subject, can I just ask, do either of you, because I don't have anything else to say about those 4 silhouettes on the left, do either of you have anything else to say about them? Because I haven't heard any other really compelling interpretation of those other than pointing us upward.
Yeah, I think that's what the indication is, because he could have drawn them normally, like not as silhouettes, but he did. So.
Yeah, I think that's all I've got on the sky things, shadows.
Okay, so let's talk about Alex. You were going to mention the 7, which you've suggested that the SVN, the sun on the door. So you can read it as, of course, with the Roman lettering, you could read it as sun, or you can read it as SVN. You, Alex, have pointed out that you could read it as 7 with the vowels removed, thus leaving 3 letters. So you could put those together and get 3, 7, and Greg has also mentioned that you could just take 7 and combine that with the fact that it's on door 30, and you could get 37. And White Raven considers both of those solutions to be legit. I'm not sure how I feel about using both of them, but what do you guys think?
I don't feel great about either one of them. I don't think that it being 3 letters and then being 7 is what's going on. Certainly, I think it's supposed to be confused with the word sun. Like that's the point of having the Roman style U's on the hero sign,
Right.
so that whether it's a U or a V is somewhat obscured. The only I mean, the room's overall theme, I would say, is if you can count it as a theme, is the number 3. 3 is mentioned over a few times in the text. All the exit doors have 3 in them. There's the sacrificial tripod. I think the theme is 3, and the letters that are taken from 7 are E's, which flipped around are like 3's. I don't know whether that ties in with that or not, but that's something I've hypothesized, although I don't think I can tie that very well to explain why exactly you're taking the 3's out of that, other than it's a room concerned with 3's, and the 3's have been taken out of 7. Something I don't think has been mentioned before, but a thought I had, is that each side of the tripod has an X on it, right? Like put together, it looks like a star, but when you take it apart, it's a triangle, and each face of the triangle, or each face of the triangular prism there has an X on it, right?
Right.
So, and there's also this sort of Greco-Roman theme. In Roman numerals, 3 X's would be 30. That's in front of the same door that has the 7 on it. So you could be putting together the 3 X's, 30, with the 7 to get 37.
The other one, too, I discovered this a while ago. You can trace 37 from if you put the tripod sideways. There's a couple ways that you could do 37, but not 30. Like, I guess you could do 30, but it would look weird.
You're talking about in Arabic numerals?
I think it's stretch.
So
Yeah, no. In just Arabic numerals, just regular ones you can do. I don't know. Maybe that's a stretch.
No, I can see what you're saying. Well, and compare it to the style of writing over on the sign too. Like the 3 would presumably look like a backwards one of these E's, which you can trace out here on the tripod.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what a 7 would look like in that style, though. So it's harder for me to say.
Well, as long as we're on the tripod, let me mention a couple other things. It's been pointed out that you can find a star in the legs and posts of the tripod, which Alex and Laura have pointed out and mentioned that it could relate to this sky theme. But I feel like there's something maybe there that we haven't found yet. And
there's a lot there. Was it 515 who mentioned that the number of triangles in there was 37?
Yeah, I was about to say, and maybe you guys know more about this than I do, because I just kind of caught this right before we started the video. But yeah, and White Raven actually confirmed that. I think he had to take the 5 points of the star to finish it up. I think maybe he found 32 triangles or something like that. Do you guys remember exactly?
I'm not gonna count them. I hope it's true. I hope it's right, because I think it's a lot more legit than the H's in the ceiling.
No. Well, anything's more legit than that. But no, White Raven, I would not say he confirmed it. He listed about half a dozen different ways that you could count the triangles in there. None of them came out to 37. One of them came out to 32. So he's like, well, so if you do this and then count the 5 points of the star, and then you do it. It was super arbitrary. I don't think White Raven was endorsing it.
Yeah, I know. I didn't want to suggest that he confirmed it. But
Oh, okay. Well, that's a bummer then if it's not true.
It just doesn't work out. Although, interestingly enough, no, it's actually not that interesting. If that back leg were not counted, like if we didn't treat that star as being bisected down the middle, then apparently there would be 35 triangles within the pentagram, and then 2 additional triangles up here, which would give you 37.
I'm sorry, up where?
Um,
Triangles where?
can you see where my cursor is on the
I
screen?
don't think I can see your cursor.
Yeah, like this triangle here and this triangle here.
No, I said I don't think I can see your cursor. I'm not sure.
Oh, never mind. Okay, but you can see you see the pentagram that
Yeah.
the star is within,
Yeah,
and in between the top of the tripod, like the basin,
right.
and the top of the pentagram,
Oh,
there,
sure.
there are
Sure.
2 triangles on each side. But
Sure.
they're really not exactly triangles,
Yeah.
straight lines. And again, that's where you have to lay some weird conditions to get it to come out to 37, because you have to say, we're going to count these 2 things up here as triangles. We're not going to count this thing that bisects it down the middle. And it's sort of interesting, but given all the different ways that you can play with the triangles in terms of what's going to count and what isn't, I guess it's not that surprising that you can come to 37 by manipulating it a bunch of different ways.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure that White Raven has tried to steer us away from these like really dense counting solutions, which I hope that none of them are actually legit, because it would just seem very tiresome. And
31's legitimate. Count those tree branches.
oh, I'm sorry, I forgot about that one. But of course, but of course. So okay, so if we can put aside the tripod. Oh, the only other thing. It's routine for me to find several old suggestions of Vince's that he probably now wants to distance himself from, but sometimes I just want to throw them in there anyway. So Vince had the idea that the tripod might relate to the Oracle of Delphi, but I don't know if you want to say anything about that now or just...
No, it absolutely does. And I don't know that that relates to a solution exactly, but I have no doubt that this is supposed to be a reference to the sacrificial tripod of the Oracle of Delphi, which the Oracle of Delphi, who was an oracle of Apollo, would come out and sit on this tripod and go into trances and answer questions and tell the future and that kind of stuff. And number one, if you just like Google sacrificial tripod or whatever, it's just one of the most famous sacrificial tripods. I'm not even sure I could come up with another sacrificial tripod out there. But number two, there's in the text, the guide says something to the effect of, after all these years, I still didn't know myself, or something like that. Well, one of the maxims, and probably the most famous maxim of the Oracle at Delphi, was know thyself. So the statement of the guide that after all these years he still doesn't know himself, or he doesn't really know himself, I forget how it's phrased exactly, while he's leaning on the sacrificial tripod, seems to me to clearly be a reference to the Oracle of Delphi. Well, I don't know that that helps. It does suggest, that, for our sake at least, that for once the guide is being honest when he's leaning on the sacrificial tripod.
Yeah.
It's like he's become an oracle giving us true advice or something.
So it's a clue. It's a clue in the sense that once you discover that, you can determine that he's telling the truth. Like if you don't know,
The text pretty heavily implies that anyway.
Yeah.
yeah, I guess so.
Well, as long as we're on the Greco-Roman theme, let me mention another solution that White Raven considers legit, which is one of Alex's, which is the turning.
I don't even like it anymore.
I'm sorry, the heroes one, the one with the paper on the right.
Yeah, go ahead though, do it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. So the idea from Alex is that you can, looking at the 5 names, starting from the helmet and working your way up the poster, I want to call it that, you can find the letters S-E-V-E-N. You can take an S from Ulysses, an E from Achilles, and so on. Of course, you use the U in Theseus as a V. And then so you work your way up to the top of the poster, and then there are 3 nails holding it in, and that gives you the 3, and that gives you 37. And that people have pointed out that continues with the same sort of upward directionality of the room, but you don't really like that one anymore, Alex?
I mean, it's okay, but I just feel, I don't know. I mean, it could be. I just I liked it, I guess, back in the day because of the same reason that I like the sun or SVN on the wall, in the sense that I think he's trying to fool you into thinking that it's Greco-Roman, but they're actually V's.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then and then you can get that. I guess the reason I don't like it so much is because some of the letters don't actually appear in the scope of the view, right? And it's
In Hercules is
seeing
completely gone.
seeing his perspective is so important in the maze. Then the stuff that's not included there, I don't consider it to exist. Or in general, you don't consider it to exist. So like, there's nothing behind the camera, so to speak.
Sure.
So for that reason, some of the ways that you could generate 7 from that poster, I don't think are really legit. But I guess there's one legit way, right, where you can. There are all the letters are on the screen, so to speak. All the letters are on the page.
I mean, you could jump to the first E in Hercules, but that would be a little bit of a jump. But I think it's fair game to presume that the reader would be able to fill in these names and wouldn't be confused by seeing Hercul, like who's that? I think it would be able to. I think it would be a reasonable expectation of Manson to that they would be able to figure that out. I mean, that they would be able to complete the name, and so I don't think it's unreasonable to think of the other letters as existing in our minds.
I mean, it seemed. I mean, it is hard to imagine it happening by accident, right? I mean, it could, but it does seem to go, right up there. The thing is, it's another case where why isn't it perfect? Like the way it is, like S is the last letter in Ulysses, and then the V from Theseus, from the U in Theseus, is the last letter we can see, and then you can't really see. Oh no, then it is, isn't it? Or can we see the E in Hercules?
You can't see the E in Hercules at all.
You can't see that at all. And then the Jason, the N is the last one you see. I mean, you just want to. If it's legit, why isn't it all lined up good?
Yeah.
Why? Because he could have done it. It wouldn't have taken that much fiddling around to get it to go up straight. And especially if it was using. Well, I mean, I guess it maybe would have been too easy if it had actually been just the last letters on the page going straight up, spelling 7.
Yeah,
So-
I guess that's slightly the it would have been too easy argument feels a little bit stronger here than it does for the shadow. Like I see what you meant about the shadow on the 3. Like no, it's not like it would have suddenly been transparent just because the shadow was on the 3. But maybe you could argue that it would be a little too easy to spot.
Yeah, I'm not generally a fan of the "it would be too easy" thing, because I think people usually just say that to excuse the fact that the solution doesn't make sense. When they're like, well, why didn't he just do this? Like, oh, it would have been too easy if it made sense. But this is one case where, yeah, right, if it had simply said 7 straight up, that would have been a lot easier to see. Whereas here, where some of the letters are just off and some of them are halfway on,
I'll tell you one thing though. Now that I'm looking at it, if you flip the page upside down, the LE in Achilles sort of looks like 37 when you flip it around, and that is totally visible on the page. So that's equally cheesy, but you could count that maybe.
I'm sorry, the LE in Achilles?
Yeah, the last L of the second L and the E next to it. When you flip it around, it sort of looks like a 37.
Oh,
See that at all?
what do you mean? Yeah, I see it. That's funny.
Achilles, the
No, you would have wanted to spot that, but I like it. You do get it right there.
Oh yeah, and then there was the other one. When you combine all the legs in the room, you can say
Yeah, go ahead. That was going to be my next one.
3 legs of the tripod, and then I go 2 ways over this. It's either 3 legs of the tripod, and then the 4 of the chair is 7, or you add the other 3 legs of the rabbit, and then you get 7 over there, and plus 3 of the tripod.
Well,
So 3.
I think
7.
the way you originally introduced this, because this was your idea, I think originally was that one of the visitors says at least 3 of us can sit down here, and it seems like a weird it seems like a weird observation, because what, are they all going to sit on that one chair, or what? I mean, the rabbit's there, the hare is there, so I think your idea was that that's impelling us to sit on the floor, but that 3 in the text itself gives us a legitimate 3, and then you could combine that with the 7. I think that was how I understood your original video.
I guess now in retrospect, I think that was a little convoluted. I prefer the one. For the one now. Yeah, I don't know what he's referring to. Maybe it's a red herring. Him referring to sitting down here and the whole 3 thing. That's what I'm starting to think. Is any reference to 3 as a red herring?
Well, as you're on the subject, there's one more thing to do with mentions of 3 in the text, which White Raven considers legit, and that is that's from Vince, and that is the idea that as far as these numbers relating to each other in some specific combination, you have a 3, a 1, and a 3 in the text. Where's the 1? Yeah, at least 3 of us can sit down here, said 1. There were only 3 possible choices. That gives us a 3, a 1, and a 3. So if you add those up, you get 7. And then you can take the 3, you can take the tripod as signifying an additional 3, and that could give you 37. So that's the one, I think the one final solution that White Raven has confirmed. So that would be that's another attempt to deal with the 3s that are in the text.
Yeah,
I like that one.
Taking the 3 from the tripod is totally unnecessary there, though.
Oh, I think it was your original idea. Maybe you've walked back on that, but maybe I misinterpreted it, but I thought that was your original idea.
It was everything before the tripod was what I suggested.
Oh, you know what? It was actually White Raven himself. Yeah, I'm just going to pass the buck. It was actually White Raven. I noted this down who suggested the tripod to get the 3.
I mean, I think that's take it or leave it. I don't think it matters. I don't think it's necessary, though, is the thing. I mean, I think the room already places such a heavy emphasis on the number 3. It's like we get the point. Every door has a 3 in it. So once they're cluing you to 7, clearly we're talking about, door 37. That said, I mean, it is a tripod, and he's leaning on it, so that's fine if you want to take it as a 3, but I don't think it's really necessary. The real problem I've got with that solution, though, is that 313 are not the only numbers mentioned in the text.
Oh, shit. Oh, no.
There's a 1.
There's another 1. Yeah.
The guy calls this room 15.
Yeah, which isn't very common, is it?
No, he doesn't usually refer to rooms by their number. And if this
room number 13.
And if this was one room where the numbers in the text were going to matter because they were going to be added together, you'd think that would be the one time that he wouldn't put the room number in the text,
Yeah. We've got 13 and 30, and I think those might be the only other ones. Yeah, it's rare, isn't it?
20. In 20 he does.
Yeah. Yeah, well, okay, so that's all of the confirmed stuff. So I mentioned which one of these I think is the more compelling, but out of everything that's up on the Abyss right now, I mean confirmed on the Abyss by White Raven, which one would you guys think is the most compelling, or do you not think that any of them is really that satisfactory?
I think we've got a lot of elements. We don't know how to interpret them correctly. So I think the sky objects in shadow pointing up to the shadows, I think we probably put something together correct there. I don't know that we have the right interpretive principle to say, here's why that points to 37.
I see.
I think the sign on the door to 37 combined with either the 30 or the tripod is meant to indicate 37. I'm not sure which is the correct interpretive principle there.
Mm.
I think the 7 on the hero's sign is probably correct.
Oh boy. What about you, Alex? What do you think? I mean, of the solutions, which ones do you think are the most compelling?
Probably the sky shadow one and the H hero thing, and maybe the legs.
Sure.
The number of legs, or
I think there are a couple other things worth mentioning here.
Yeah, I've got a few more things noted down. You want me to just blitz through a few, and then if I've neglected anything?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, one thing, let's see. we've got it seems, depending on whether you think that the tortoise in room 20 is supposed to remind us of the fable of the tortoise and the hare, and cue us in that we've reached the victory line, the finish line, then it seems impossible not to read this hare as somehow relating to that, especially because if you buy the idea that we've got all these objects beginning with H, then it is supposed to be a hare and not a rabbit. I think that was Vince's original idea. He pointed that out.
Well, and he is a tortoise. It is a tortoise. It's not a turtle. So
Yeah. So yeah, good point.
tortoise
Yeah.
there.
So you guys have anything to say about that? Feels
Well,
like
released to room 1. People.
there have been a few attempts to correlate this room with other rooms, and I think that's one that's really hard to ignore. But I don't know what to make of it at all.
I think it undoubtedly. I think there's a tortoise and the hare reference going on here, with the tortoise beating the hare to the finish line. Interesting, in both rooms too, you've got a lot of other objects in the room starting with the same letter. Like in room 20 with the tortoise, you've got lots of T objects. In here with the hare, you've got lots of H objects. Although oddly enough, the T in the tortoise room is not part of the riddle of the guide, but the H here is.
Yeah, and you mentioned something else about that, which is you and Greg talked about this, and this was another one of those things that you probably don't care about anymore, but I found interesting when I was looking back through this. We've got 3 rooms total where it seems like there's a glut of objects beginning with a particular letter, and the 2 that have been mentioned, and also room 2, which has a lot of objects beginning with B. And so there's a strange pattern where we've got all these objects beginning with B in 2. B is letter number 2 in the alphabet. T is letter number 20. And yet here H, which is letter number 8, has no relation to 15. And so there was some tentative talk about maybe that being some kind of an odd one in solution or just some weirdness. But it does seem it seems odd that it feels like that could have been deliberate for the other 2 rooms, and then that pattern doesn't hold here.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm prepared to develop. I forgot about that. I think that is an interesting point, even if I made it myself at some point. There does seem to be something to that, where if there's stuff in room 20 that I guess could be seen as cluing 20, because T is the 20th letter of the alphabet.
Mm-hmm.
That's not really telling you anything. That's not telling you where to go. Or in room 2, you see lots of B's, and B's correspond to 2. That's not telling you anything, so those are not useful clues. But here in 15, where you've got the H, that means something different. It's kind of similar to something I was talking about with Alex at some point, where sometimes there are objects in front of doors that seem to clue that door number or something. But if it's already in front of the door number, it's not pointing you in the right direction. And I guess I could use an example from right here in this room, like how you've got the tripod in front of room 30, and it's got like I mentioned, 3 X's on it, which could add up to 30. But taking that as an indicator that you're supposed to go through 30 would not be correct. It's already in front of door 30, so you have to read that in a broader context to see what it's telling you. And there are a lot of things like that, like I'm sorry, what?
Really, you think that that's a pattern throughout the maze? That seems like a dangerous thing to write off any clue that seems too close to the door that it would appear to suggest.
I don't know of a counterexample, but again, very specifically what I'm saying is that if we've got an object that's already like in front of a door, so that it would be associated with that door, and then that object alone clues to that door, that is not a reliable clue to the door.
That's really interesting. Can you name another example offhand?
Yeah. Well, okay. Let's say, for example, the archer's arrow within the door of in room 20, the archer's arrow within the door pointing to room 27.
Sure.
Which is, I guess, pointing, like the back of the book suggests, maybe pointing the way to go that way, but it's already there in the doorway, and it's not pointing the correct way. I would suggest the 1-5 sign in room 30, which is essentially just saying, oh, I'm sorry, if no Eve.
If no
If
Eve.
no Eve, which essentially is just saying 1-5 and points to room 15, is not telling you the correct way to go, and it's already associated with the door because it's pointing right at the door. I mean, it's almost like it's not telling you which way to go. It's just saying, this is this is door room 15. I think in room 5, the easel that's in front of the door to 43 with all the fourth words on it, 444, and it's on the three-legged easel. I think elsewhere in the room that would seem to be indicative of 43 or 43, but it's right in front of door 43, so it's not an indicator to go to 43. You have to read it in a broader context with other clues. I can't think of another example off the top of my head.
No, that's funny. That's really interesting.
Yeah. The one in what's the room with the 3 blind mice?
Oh, room 9.
Yeah, it's got the apple in the doorway, which is it's got an apple and an angel, which are 2 A-lettered words that are associated with that door, and then you've got other, and then I guess you've got the number 3 associated with the other door. I don't know. I don't think that's what you're talking about, but I think like on a level, it's sort of the same thing.
Well, it could be an example of it because the other door is the door to 3, and the stuff that's right by the door to 3, like it has the blind mouse, right, which is suggestive of 3 blind mice, which you might take to be like, oh, it's a clue telling us to go to 3, but the painting is already right there, right next to 3. Now that one's a little dodgier because it doesn't really overlap with the door to 3. I don't know that it's really so intimately associated with door 3 that you would say, well, this is just, it's already in front of door 3. But it could be an example of it. Anyway, I'm not aware of a counterexample where something right on the door is telling you that you should take that door and it's correct.
Oh yeah, I think we forgot this one. There's 7 things that start with H in this room when you count them.
Oh, count them.
Count them. I think.
I think I climbed that at some point, but it kind of.
What are the 7 things?
Let's see here. We've got
hair, heart, hat. No, you do it. You do it.
All right. So we've got the heroes, the helmet. Sorry, I lost my screen there when I took it off screen share. We've got the hair, heart, hat, another hat, and a house. But you have to count the hat separately.
Yeah, I think it's convincing because it's the 2 hats.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
That's what sells it for you?
Strangely, yes. If it was only 6 objects, or I don't know. He was just lazy, and he was just, okay, fuck it, I'm just going to put another hat in there.
Yeah.
Stupidly enough, I can kind of see where you're coming from with, like, him repeating objects does make it kind of seem like you're trying to count up to a certain number, Like, I don't know, maybe not. Maybe you get the opposite, because if we needed to, we would just say hats singular. Like, if we wanted to get the number 6, we would just say hats.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, riddle me this. Is there another object in there that's got an H?
What's that?
Is there another object in there that you could say starts with an H?
Probably, but...
If you did, then you could justify saying hats. I could still make the argument that there's 7 things with 7, even if there's 8.
Yeah.
Classing.
Yeah. I got it. The hole in the door from 4 where you don't have a doorknob.
Oh, good one.
And speaking of which, speaking of door 4 and speaking of hats, that's another thing that has been pointed out by Greg and Vince that I thought was interesting. The idea that you can sort of, I mean, I don't know that I really like it that much. I don't like the ship in the Needle and Eye room very much for the same reason. But Greg and Vince had the idea that you can follow the hats if you're coming into this room from room 4, in which case you're following the path correctly. then you have the front hat, which is pointing to door 4, the unmarked one, and then the other hat is pointing sort of perhaps to 37. But then you could almost just as well say that it's pointing to 3, so it's got the same problem as the ship in the Needle and Eye run. But it's there, and I just thought I would mention that one.
Oh, I'm not sure. I don't think I ever was cognizant of that one before.
You might have just mentioned it in the stupor, but I think Greg posted about it, and he said that you had also been helping with that idea.
So the hat, the first hat points the way you were coming, and then the next hat points the way you're going.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And then, speaking of door 4, that brings me to my last thing that I wanted to mention, which is something from Gentile, which I think is I don't know that I like this solution that much, but I feel that it's pretty straightforward and it's worth mentioning. He has the idea that you should just add together 4, the unmarked door, and 30 and 3, and get 37. And his idea is that there are only 3 possible choices. It seems like such an obvious thing to point out because you can see it right there in the room, and it's not exactly adding much new information. And of course, we've tried to interpret that in some other ways, get some other things. But Gentile has also suggested that it could just be drawing your attention to drawing your attention to what would be that unmarked door as well, and so directing you to pick up that number as well and put them all together. And he tried to relate that to perhaps these numbers relate to each other in some specific combination. I think Vince felt like maybe it would be more compelling if they were doors or something like perhaps these doors relate to each other, because it feels weird to talk about these numbers when the number 4 isn't really in the room or anything. But I thought that was a pretty straightforward one, and I thought that would be worth mentioning as well.
Yeah, I kind of like that one. I think that's some rare gold from Gentile. Gentile. Gentile.
It's Gentile. That's what he told us.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's a good one from him. I mean, that makes at least or more sense to me than adding the stuff in the text where, you have to ignore some of the numbers and
right.
the other ones add. I mean, this to me seems, it could be coincidental, but again, it's one of those things where, boy, did Manson really not notice that these door numbers were adding up to each other?
Yeah.
And another reason why I think it's kind of a good one is that if you're not coming from room 4, then, or if you haven't been to room 4 to see that it connects here, then you're not you would want to be going a different direction than if you've been there and you're coming back. Like if you're and I just thought of this, but if you're on the way back from the center, then yeah, you want to go to 37. But if you have not been to room 4 yet, then it would be better off going to room 30, I think.
Yeah.
So I kind of wonder if there's a way to read this room such that without knowing no, there are too many clues pointing to 7. I don't think there's any way to do that. I was wondering whether there's a way where if you don't know that door comes from 4, something about the room tells you to go to 30, but if you know that's 4, it sends you to 37. But I don't think that's going to work out because there's just too much in the room pointing towards 7 anyway.
Yeah. No, that's cool. That would be very sophisticated if you could pull that off, but that seems difficult.
Yeah. Well, unless... You see, now this is the problem. Okay, so we've got the 7 spelled out on the Roman sign, right?
Right.
Which we take, okay, that means we go to 37. But what if we just took that to mean, oh, we should go to the door that has 7 written on it in sort of these Roman numerals, which would go to 3. They're not really Roman numerals. They're, I guess, a Roman-esque writing style. I don't know what you want to call it. But you know what I mean? Like the door.
Repeat that last point. Repeat it. Why would we interpret that differently?
We would say not we're going to go to the door that has 7 in the number. We would say we're going to go to the door that has 7 written on it.
Which would be
30.
The reason why you noticed that is because 7 was written on the door. So I don't understand.
No. I'm saying you got the 7 from the Heroes poster.
Oh. So let's say that you found that, and then yeah, maybe.
And there are probably, I mean, you could just flat out find SVN on there, pretty much. But whatever, 7's SVN, Sun, whatever. It's, I'm just, and I guess that doesn't really depend on whether you know that that door came from 4. So this isn't really what I was talking about at all. I just started thinking out loud.
Hmm.
But it's so weird.
It's not a very dangerous room, though. I mean,
No.
worst case scenario, which isn't really that deep in the loop.
Yeah. I think that SVN has to be read in combination with the tripod.
Hmm.
Anyway, sorry.
I think you're onto something. Maybe you're onto something with the Roman numerals, like relating to the heroes, the font and everything.
Well, I mean, it's clearly done on purpose, but I think it's just to confuse U's and V's. All right, sorry. I went off on a tangent there. I just had some new thoughts.
No, that's fine. I'm actually out of prepared material. That was just about everything that I wanted to bring up. So, is there anything else? I know that there's been a lot of posts on this room this month that I haven't had a chance to read yet. Anything that you guys want to mention there, or any other observations?
I don't think I have anything new that was posted there. Um, I want to suggest something that I don't think anyone's going to take too seriously, but I don't think is that crazy, which is identifying the tripod as the Oracle of Delphi's tripod. You know that whatever he's sitting on it leads to oracular truths or whatever. I suggested that the one hat being on top of the tripod was suggestive that the hats are giving you the correct answer, and so the other hat pointing at the correct door is indeed a reliable clue telling you where to go.
Yeah, I like that.
You do or don't?
I like that. Yeah, I do.
My only problem with that is why do you know to pick the other hat instead of 30, which you could
Actually on the tripod.
you could say that the brighter hat that's sitting on the tripod relates to 30 because it's directly over it, whereas I mean in terms of the composition of the image, whereas the other hat isn't over a room. So
That's true.
make that jump.
I guess my response to be it's the hat's not doesn't really seem to be indicating 30.
Yeah,
Like the other hat is pointing towards the 37, but I guess there are certainly places all over the maze where we would just associate.
I think Andrew's got a good point. Like the hat that's on the tripod could be the one telling the truth because it overlaps the same way in 4 the handle overlaps the 2 correct doors.
Mm.
I know what you're trying to say in that look at the one hat and then sort of follow the path of hats, but you could also probably erroneously interpret that as well. One of the hats is telling the truth and the other one is lying, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that'd be the plausible counter reading if we wanted to read it the other way is good hat, bad hat. So yeah, you're right. That doesn't really.
I think that could be a Grand Slam solution if the hats were arranged in such a way that the truth hat were pointing towards the other hat, which was then pointing towards 37. That would be, you could make a nice plausible line out of that. But yeah, I like that, but I feel like it seems hard to imagine that he would expect us to make that jump.
Is the fact that one of them is a bowler and the other one is sort of a fedora, or I don't know if that's a fedora. It's not a pork pie.
No, it's not a pork pie. No.
It's yeah, I think that's a fedora. I think the first letter is the type of hat that is has any significance.
Nah.
Bowler B. If it was a hat that started with the letter C. Oh wait, is fedora is F the 7th letter?
No.
Sixth letter. Yeah. Oh well.
Uh, I have nothing else clue-wise. Want to go through the text?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Hey Alex, you want to read the text?
Yeah. Okay.
Go for it.
Uh, Room number 15. Just as we entered, I heard a thump and the sound of footsteps hurrying away. Somewhere a door slammed.
Now hold on a second. I think that was always a really mysterious line. I think I've interpreted it correctly recently, but I didn't really get any feedback on what other people thought. My thought is this. I think that sound is supposed to be the rabbit leaving the room. The image we see right now is the image of the room before they enter,
Mm.
okay, which is something we've seen in other rooms, where the image you see is something right before they get there or as they're entering, kind of like in 16 where there's a guy running away and you can still see the guy when you get in there, you know. So I think the thump is the rabbit hitting the floor and then running away, and then somewhere a door slams behind it. I don't think there's a different mysterious entity opening and shutting these doors.
So wait, so how does that help us?
I don't think it, well, who knows? I'm not saying it gives you the answer, but we don't have anything to do with that line anyway, at least at this point. I'm just saying I think that's what that line is about.
I do have to say, I feel like in 16, it seems as though this has to be the visitors are in the room because they saw him. So I don't see how this can be a snapshot from before the visitors walked in.
Well, okay, it's not right before they walk. I mean, because yeah, the guy is seeing the guide at that point when he's running away. So they've
It's sort of just as they're walking.
yeah.
Well, okay.
I think Vince is thinking about room 25 too much.
25.
Yeah, because you could. It's like a time. It's a time lapse, and you're just seeing what the room numbers are before the sign falls off the wall.
I don't know about that.
Well, this is what you're talking about. Like, at what point in time are you see the scene in front of you?
Yeah. But I don't know. I don't think there's actual motion going on in 25 though. I mean, it might be like 34, where there's someone leaving the room in the picture, but it's not mentioned by anyone in the text or anything, presumably because the person's not still standing in the door when they get there. I'm trying to think of another example of a room that's sort of in flux. I don't know. But in any case, I still think that's what the deal is, that that's what the sound is the rabbit leaving the room.
Makes sense because of Disney's Bambi and Thumper.
Believe it or not, I think that might... No, whatever. I don't think that's...
Oh, no. Okay. All right. No, that's fine. That's fine.
All right, sorry, go ahead with the reading.
At least 3 of us can sit down here," said one. There were only 3 possible choices.
All right, so we've talked about that as potentially giving us numbers to add together, or suggesting that we take a look at the things on the feet on the floor, or place to sit down, whatever.
Leaning on the sacrificial tripod, I was suddenly moved to say, "Perhaps these numbers relate to each other in some specific combination." Immediately, I regretted this act of charity. Sometimes I think after all these years that I don't really know myself.
I think we've covered that.
Yeah, Oracle of Delphi. One of them thought he had worked it out and, very pleased with himself, led us into...
Yeah, I don't know what... See, that's what's so weird, is that if the text is really all about saying the right numbers to get us the 7 that we need, why then, after that, throw in this stuff about one of them? You know, why put in another 1?
Yeah.
It's completely unnecessary to specify one of them figured it out instead, so led them into another room, you know? And it just seems like a really odd thing to go tossing in other numbers. Again, it's one of those cases where it's not like it becomes obvious if he doesn't throw those numbers in.
Yeah.
It just makes it seem like it's not really the solution when he does throw them in.
Yeah, I agree.
So are you saying that that it does add up to 7? The written
No,
down number.
because you got 3131 as far as
Okay.
numbers that are stated, and you've got 15, the number written out in the text. And I don't know any way that you manipulate those, at least in using standard operations or anything, to get to 37.
Huh. Okay, you want to talk about the new findings?
Oh,
This room. I think we bled this room dry.
Yeah, I could.
Unless you want to talk about the mysterious bubbles coming out of the house. I always wondered about that. It's just in.
oh, you know what? That reminds me of there is something else, and I'm not always the biggest fan of counting stuff, but I think that there's some suspicious sense to this, in that we've got the 3 like signs in the room, or placards, or whatever you want to call them. We've got the hero sign, we've got the house, and we've got the shadows.
Mm-hmm.
And there are 7 nails holding them up, all put together, because the house is connected to the wall at all 4 corners, so it lays flat against it.
Mm-hmm.
The shadow sign is just sitting on the floor, so there's nothing holding it there. And then the hero sign has 3 nails at the top, and the bottom is swinging free.
Hmm.
Like
It's like you nailed it.
like I say, there's a lot of rooms where you can just start counting funny stuff and then eventually come up to the number that you need. But this seems unusually not coincidental.
Yeah, it's self-contained into thematically related objects. So.
Yeah, no, and it also seems to be some attention paid to how these things are connected in the wall, just in the sense that the house is connected at all 4 corners, so it's flush against it. The the hero sign is kind of like flapping away from the wall because it's only connected on the top, and then the other one's sitting leaning against the wall because it's not attached. It does seem like some care was paid to how these things are going to be connected to the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never noticed that. That's cool.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
That was, I think, okay, now, for real, I'm done. That's all I got.
Okay.
So we wanted to talk about the new set of clues.
Oh yeah.
Well, let me see. I'll pull them up and.
So,
It,
to give people a background, somebody sent us scanned copies or whatever pictures of Ventura Associates, which is the one of the publishing company affiliates, sent out. If you mailed in about the book and the riddle, they sent you one of 2 letters or maybe both, and they've come to light sometime earlier this week. So the second one we're all familiar with. It's the 2 ways you can read the sign, etc., etc.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So we just found the first one that came out apparently, and Vince is going to put it on the screen.
Oh, well, I can put it. I'll just read it. I mean, I'm just reading it off the Abyss right now, because I don't have the original Andrew Plotkin link offhand. But this is the first set of clues that was sent out to people who were trying to solve maze back in the mid '80s. It's 3 things should be thrown out. 3 things come in pairs. You'll find 2 people in the room. They must sit in 1 chair. And I think there's just no way in the world that could help anybody solve the riddle of the maze or come up with the riddle of the maze in room 45. Like, I've started agonizing again on the Abyss about just how insane the riddle of the maze is in room 45, because it's like not only did Manton expect that people were going to solve this when nobody could solve it, he gave out this hint and thought, oh, okay, now this is going to make it clear for people.
What
They're going to be able to figure it out.
I have no idea in God's name, what are the 3 things that you're supposed to throw out? No idea.
I mean, the only thing we can make sense of out of it is the tool is not directly used in generating a word. The chair, but the chair is problematic because then they mention it later on in the clues, suggesting that it is important. But at least it's not directly used to make a word. And then the picture of the nun, which is apparently thrown out in favor of all. So those are the only things I can think of that you throw out. But
That's pretty reasonable.
yeah, but if you know the answer, that's helpful. That's completely unhelpful to show. I mean, I guess it's helpful in a sense.
If anything, it makes it more complicated now because now you're trying to figure out which things to throw out instead of concentrating on this insanely difficult rebus puzzle.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's hard to say that it makes it harder or easier since it's just impossible beforehand and it's impossible afterwards. Like, it's hard to say whether you made any progress there.
You can't add +1 to infinity.
It's just completely unhelpful to say, all right, there are some things in the room that you're not even going to use. I guess it limits your options somewhat, but it's just so unhelpful. 3 things come in pairs.
I don't even know I mean, the shoe, maybe. What, the eye? What other things come in pairs in there?
Well, see, that's what's confusing about it. And as I said, he doesn't say 6 things are part of pairs. It's 3 things come in pairs. So
Right.
there have to be 3 different categories of things that are paired together, right? Like 3 sets of things that you could say are the same thing. Now the shoes, the shoe and the horseshoe, I think you could fairly say that's a pair of things.
Okay.
And then I think the I guess like the picture of an eye and then the picture of the N are both sort of pictures and they relate to letters. So you could call that a pair. You could.
The craziest one is W plus hat equals
Well,
what?
Why
would you?
Is it W and hat? I mean, those things get combined together. Those are the other things that get combined together to give you a word. But is it that or is it all and none? Because all and none are 2 pictures of the same size, symmetrically placed in the room that relate to each other. And so they come in a pair, but it's also one of the things that you have to throw out one of the things, So who knows whether that's the thing that comes in a pair or whether he's talking about the 3 things that you have to combine together. But if he's talking about the 3 things, the 3 pairs that you combine together, then then he's saying the W and the picture of a hat can somehow be considered 2 of the same thing.
Well, wait a second. Where do we get house from? When we say what house will
That's
always use the house? Sorry?
That's from the shoes.
Okay.
Shoe plus you. All right, then
you've got the last 2 lines, and if you didn't already have a shot at figuring out that it was Will from William Shakespeare and Woodrow Wilson, how would you figure that out from the clue that they must sit in one chair?
exactly. That's exactly what I said.
How does that help?
It's completely unhelpful. It's because it's essentially impossible to get the names Woodrow Wilson and William Shakespeare out of that without simultaneously realizing, there's a will missing,
Right.
That's the whole thing, is the missing will.
Right.
So this clue presupposes that people are sitting there saying, Woodrow Wilson, William Shakespeare, what do I do with these 2 names that I'm getting? And then when you tell them they have to sit in one chair, then they're saying, take the will that's missing from both of their names.
Then again, I have no idea what they go together like donut and hole means in the original Not in the original, in the second set of clues either.
It's a weird metaphor, but I guess I can see more somewhat conceptually that the names that you have are kind of like the donut, and there's a hole missing from the names.
Oh,
Will is the missing hole of the donut. But it's weird, but it makes more sense to me than saying that they have to sit in the same chair.
that's
Being a maze fanatic is masochistic in a way. It's like puzzles that we can never solve. I think we can.
That would be a bad clue if there weren't a chair in the room. Okay, if there were no chair, that would still be a bad clue. When there is a chair that is completely unrelated to the riddle, that's a terrible clue. I mean, people are going to be reading that and thinking they have to pay attention to the chair, looking for two people. Oh, awful. These clues are terrible. Yeah. So yeah, I've had kind of a Room 34 reaction to these clues.
Oh, God.
It's funny because at first I was like, oh, wow, cool, we've got these clues.
And then you read them.
Take a look at these clues. And then it's slowly like, man, this is fucking insane.
We're going to find a third down the road.
Oh, no, yeah, the third batch. Oh, God.
Did we do room 20?
Yeah.
Did we do 20?
Mhm.
Ah, no, there's no way we could have done 20.
We did
You
it.
know why? Because I don't remember what object I picked for room 20 for the screen for the thumbnail. Because we haven't done 20 yet.
I'm pretty sure we did it the episode where we did 3 different rooms. So maybe that's why you picked an object for it.
Really, we did that, huh?
Yeah.
Rooms.
Lame. It's really lame when we do 2 separate things in one video. That's just the lamest.
By the way, this was only about 10 minutes from the beginning, right?
Oh, yeah.
I think I wasn't watching the clock, but I think it's only been about 10 minutes since we said we were going to be discussing this topic.
Okay, good.
All right, so this turned into a long episode, longer than I thought it was going to be, but I think it was fun. I think we had a good time.
Yeah.
And we got to complain about the book that we're spending the better part of a year talking about. I was glad to do that. I guess we'll probably talk about off the air what our next episode's going to be.
Sure.
All right. Well, I hope you can make it for the next one too, Beals, because you really liven things up when you're here.
Yeah, thank you.
So long, everybody. We'll see you next time.